I'm Mike Matthews. I want to be honest with you. I am not a good self-promoter, but I do self-produce, and this is the longest-running self-produced daily podcast on the planet. There, I did a little promotion. I met a guy today who was I had a 2-minute conversation with him. Within the first 2 minutes, the only 2 minutes I talked to him, he promoted himself and every little thing he was doing, and then he left because he had to use the bathroom. He had to leave. Thankfully, that was my out. But my point is, we have to learn that what came so easy for him, what is difficult for people like me. So here I'm promoting my podcast. The other thing I'm doing is talking about supermarkets here in PodCastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Meritopia, because, okay, our supermarkets aren't the worst, but oh my gosh, I was in the town of Alamo, which is about a 40-minute drive from where I live. This supermarket, same people running it, same company, but oh my gosh, it was like I heard the sound of a choir, oh so angelic, not because it's Christmas time, but because it was such a beautiful store, and you walked in and it was so shiny, and they had a wall that was completely dedicated to beer, and then another wall dedicated to wine, and another wall dedicated to bread, a bakery, but it wasn't a bakery, it was a patisserie. I speak perfect French. But one thing I won't complain about PodCastro Valley is that we rarely have to do the drip. That is what I hear with my friends in my former locale, which I lived in for 2 years, Huntsville, Alabama. This time of year, when it gets so cold, when it gets below freezing, it doesn't get too far below freezing in Huntsville, Alabama, but they got to do the drip. They got to turn on the faucet and let it drip, waste a little bit of water so that the pipes don't freeze. We don't really have to do that here in PodCastro Valley. Not so far. We'll see how it goes the rest of this winter. But you look like you need to warm up. Come with me now. And we got the fireplace rolling. It's hot as can be. And it's all beautifully lit here in Café Anyway. Let's go. Café Anyway.
It's Mike's Daily Podcast.
Thank you. It's FF episode 2970, 2970. Mike Matthews. Welcome to Mike's Daily Podcast, PodCastro Valley. Mike's Daily Podcast. The last place on earth in the land of Meritopia is where we are. It's FF episode 2970. Here we go. We're doing this thing called Mike's Daily Podcast with some fascinating stuff to tell you, and I hope I haven't passed the point of no return with Mike's Daily Podcast. These fantastic lyrics today. Hey, why is it some people do ridiculously dumb things? Yeah! Like, they blow a tire out on their car, and then they keep driving on the rim. They keep driving on the rim for a while. I saw that recently. Actually, I heard it, and then I walked down the street a ways, and I found the vehicle that had blown the tire had left like a black groove in the road, a mark that is the scene of the crime, and there it was with its tire completely blown out. Don't do that. Pull over to the side, get help, roadside help, switch the tire out yourself. There's a couple of different options, but don't drive on it. Not a good idea. But do you know, here's some other interesting things I found out. Eli Lilly's weight loss drug Zepbound apparently is more effective than Novo's Wegovy, a study shows. On average, Zepbound led to a superior weight loss of 20%, a little over 20%, compared to Wegovy, which is down at 13.7%. I don't agree with any of those weight loss drugs. Or back in, was it 20 years ago, people were getting the lap bands and the stomach staples and all that.
And here's today's podcast picture.
I guess if you have to, I mean, if there's like a health situation going on, I am not a doctor. I don't know, but it just seems common sense that you got to do things like you got to do the work, as they say, and watch what you eat and exercise and do all the things that doctors keep telling us to do over and over and over again until they're blue in the face. But yeah, I know I should talk. I'm not a sculpted muscle man, but it is interesting that the podcast picture's not of me in this one. It is actually of a cool little place in downtown Danville, which I took the late great Basil the Boxer to many a time. We'd walk around downtown. And it's very Christmassy, so that's why I put it in the podcast picture for today. And you can see it at mikesdailypodcast.com if you would like to go there. Then there's this whole thing with the airline executives. American, United, Delta, Frontier, Spirit, they testified before Senate. A Senate panel about their seating fees. U.S. carriers brought in more than $12 billion in seating fees between 2018 and 2023. U.S. airline executives are defending their seating fees before a Senate panel after the subcommittee accused the industry of charging junk fees to bring in billions in revenue. They're trying to defend it. Oh, and what's this?
The word of dog.
Yeah, why you... That's what he's saying, the late great Basil the Boxer. Don't charge us so much. Those extra charges are for seats with additional legroom as well as those in preferred locations that are closer to the front of the plane or window or aisle seats. The airlines these days view their customers as little more than walking piggy banks to be shaken down for every possible dime, said Senator Richard Blumenthal. Well, I hope that they keep going after them even when Trump is president. Speaking of airlines, Frontier, the ultra-low-cost airline, they're adding first-class seats to compete for premium passengers. While we have the lowest cost in the industry, we don't have the best revenue model, said the CEO, Barry Biffle.
Mike's Matthewsman Park.
Yes, it's a Matthewsman Park of fascinating
front
stuff.
panel will close automatically. Please remain seated at all times.
Well, let's say you want to fly really high in the sky. Maybe you want to use SpaceX. They're in talks to sell insider shares at a new valuation of $350 billion, much higher than the most recent $255 billion valuation. Wow. It's like everything Elon's touching these days is rather turning to gold, it seems. But let's talk about you and me and shopping. Perhaps you did some shopping on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. The shoppers exceeded expectations. The number of holiday shoppers who went into stores and made purchases online this year nearly broke records. 197 million consumers shopped throughout the 5-day weekend, starting there on Black Friday, going through all the way, well, I guess parts of Thanksgiving maybe, all the way through Cyber Monday. The 197 million is 75% of the U.S. adult population. That's pretty close to 100% and pretty amazing. The more people shopping in stores and online these days, and 126 million consumers shopped in store. That's right. 120 of the 197 million, 126 million went into a store. That's fantastic. Online shoppers totaled 124.3 million. So people doing both. You remember there was a time where people were like, oh no, they're only going to shop online. They're not going to shop in stores. Once they figure out they don't have to ever leave their couch, they're never going to leave their couch. Well, no, people want to go outside. They want to see things. They want to see the lights. They want to take their kids somewhere so they don't go crazy. Guys want to go and sit on those couches in the malls. I always thought that the malls were going to disappear. And that's certainly, well, some cases it has, but Anyway, Café Anyway, we're outside somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, in the land of Ameritopica. They actually qualify and quantify the full holiday season from November 1st to December 31st. And they say it's going to reach $240 billion this year, actually a little bit over, which is about up over 8% from last year. So things are doing better, believe it or not, even with inflation. And the average gift spending is at $235.
Mike's Out of Left Field recording.
This is Out of Left Field.
Recording everything captures actions that will never again be repeated.
Of the 5 biggest things that people are going to purchase gifts of, the items that they are going to purchase the most as gifts, at the bottom of the list, tying with food and candy, is personal care or beauty items. At number 3 is gift cards. At number 2 is toys at 31%. And at almost 50% is clothing and accessories. We love our clothes. That's why all those YouTube channels are so big now, where people talk about their capsule. Not that they're going to fly off the planet and do a SpaceX thing and boldly go where no one has gone before. No, they're talking about their clothes and the capsule. And that's all I know. All I know is my lovely lady friend often watches those type shows. So, Generation Z has got credit card problems.
And now we return you to our regularly scheduled program with Mike Matthews.
Thank you. And if you'd like to take a break from listening to this podcast, feel free to go to our website, mikesdailypodcast.com, and you can actually watch the video of me recording this. Feel free to do that. If you do that, the video is interesting. I got a pan bear on my head. I've got a lemur. I've got a what do they call those ones? I'm seeing an owl, a cat, and the hedgehog. Yeah, so you can see that at mikesdailypodcast.com. I recently heard a podcast that I did like 1,000 episodes ago, maybe a little bit more. And it's always interesting to go back and listen to yourself years ago. And I was doing the same thing. I was
fine article.
You silly, great, fat article.
This is a fine article, I'm telling you, is that I was complaining about how Serial, remember that podcast Serial? How it was the biggest podcast. And then I think recently I was complaining about how the Joe Rogan podcast was so big, when it's not really that big, as big now. There was something else that was number 1. Was it The Daily from the New York Times? I've listened to that. And there was probably the Kelsey brothers thing. Anyway, Café Anyway. Enough of it. I won't complain anymore about other people's podcasts. I'll just talk about how Generation Z is having credit card problems. They're racking up credit card debt at a worrying rate. And I did not get a credit card till I was just out of college. So I guess I was somewhere in this age bracket of 22 to 24. The average credit card balance for someone 22 to 24 was over
The cutting corners corner.
There you go. The cutting corners corner. That would be a great way to cut corners, is to not have credit cards. And it can make you... I heard one expert say, when you're not using a credit card and you're actually handling money, there's more pain when you buy something. Credit card takes the pain away until you see the bill. But that's a great way to cut corners. So the average credit card balance for someone 22 to 24, which we classify as Generation Z, was $2,834, almost $3,000. That is a 26% increase from the average figure for millennials that were at the same age. 26% increase. Millennials were a little bit thrifty or smarter with their money anyway, or their debt. Gen Zers open more cards. They are more likely to fall behind on payments. And they were using the cards for more types of purchases. They are acquiring debt at a faster rate than any other age group. I got that from Rob Black. I produce his podcast. He's heard on AM 1220 KDOW weekday mornings.
The Fascinating Material Project.
The FM Project.
And he's on Cron TV Monday through Thursday in the 9 o'clock hour. Gen Zers, he says, are actually acquiring debt at a faster rate than any other age group, and their desire to make up for lost time is because of the pandemic. They are revenge spending because they were kept inside. That's one excuse, but people use all kinds of excuses to blow money. Generation Z really prioritizes fun over finances. They like to eat out. They like to shop, and they love to travel. Let's see, my cousin's daughter, I guess technically she's a millennial, and she travels constantly. I don't even know how she's funding it, but wow. So that's even bigger for Generation Z. The total credit card balance held by U.S. consumers surpassed
Hey kids,
$1 trillion
it's me,
in
Do-Re-Mi the Clown.
2023. Thank you, Do-Re-Mi the Clown, for interrupting me. Credit card debt is an invisible problem. You can't see it, yet it veils you in shame, said Rob. Well put. What do you think about all that? Well, first I want to ask someone. Before I ask you that, let me ask this person right here. Oh my God, he's a Chely Shoehart gift shop supervisor. That clown was really scary, Mike Matthews. Thank you. Did you see the podcast picture? It's really cool. Yeah, Mike Matthews, it was great.
Woo!
I liked it a lot. And so did that person. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, see it at mikesdailypodcast.com. Mike, I'm trying to sell all the snow globes that I have because I always have a bunch left over every year. And then I try and sell them by saying that they're not snow globes for Christmas, that they're snow globes for other occasions. So this time I'd like to actually sell them all, Mike Matthew. Yeah, I know. Like in the middle of the year when we have all the fires here in California, you say they're not the snow globes, but ash globes. Like little ash is falling down.
You will travel into the incredible universe.
Oh, that reminds me. Tim Burton. Oh, there's this great channel called Yesterworld, and they just did one on Tim Burton and him doing Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton's amazing because he went to, what is it called? California Institute.
We love you, Mike.
Thank you very much. The Cal Arts. And Cal Arts is just up, I think it's up 5, or because you're in Southern California, up the 5, up from the Los Angeles, up almost to Six Flags Magic Mountain. And there is where he was. He studied animation. He was a really good drawer, but he claimed no, not a good drawer. He said the other artists laughed at him. Not because he had a red nose, shiny red nose. That's the kind of story we like to tell this time of year and sing about it with Gene Autry. No. He was saying it was because he had a difficult time drawing actual real life, what people really look like, the actual realistic view. He would always end up doing something slightly surreal and changed and creepy. And you know how Nightmare Before Christmas is and all that. So it was amazing to see how he struggled. He just got into Disney because a bunch of people had left Disney to work for Don Bluth. And I know somebody, Owen Welsh, he's been on the show with Welsh on the World. His segment's called Welsh on the World, which we have not done for a long time. But I saw him recently. He worked for Don Bluth for a little while. Don Bluth did things like America's Tale, Secret of Nim, the dinosaur one that's really sad, All Dogs Go to Heaven. He did a bunch of big animation movies that at the time, no matter how much kombucha Disney drank, even though I don't think they had kombucha back then in the 80s, they just could not have a big hit animated movie. Not until Little Mermaid. They tried with so many movies that I even forgot about. The Great Mouse Detective, forgot about that one. I did go see The Fox and the Hound with my grandma, I remember. I think that was in the early 80s. They did the Black Cauldron. Oh, so anyway, Café Anyway, he did work on that, Tim Burton. But it basically, Disney tried a couple of projects with him. One of them is Vincent, which you can watch. It's like a 6-minute movie on YouTube. You can find it and watch that, and it's magnifyingly good. And it's all stop motion like they do with The Nightmare Before Christmas. But basically, Disney told him, go away. We don't know what to do with it. He did another thing, a live action thing with Shelley Duvall. And the guy that was the voice of the Wonder Years that you never see, Daniel Stern. And it was called Frankenweenie, and a kid basically resurrects, like Frankenstein, his dog that gets hit by a car. And it's all shot in black and white and weird and kind of Beetlejuicy, but not with any of the really crazy special effects. Just very dark. And Disney didn't know what to do with it. So they told him goodbye. And then Shelley Duvall enjoyed so much working with Tim Burton on making Frankenweenie that she knew Paul Rubens, and she said to Paul, "You got to work with this director," because Paul was just about to do his first Pee-wee movie, is what that was. Yes, the Pee-wee movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He needed a director, and he found a magnifying glass and looked through all the. And Shelley Duvall said, "Try Tim Burton," and Pee Wee Herman looked at his work and said, "This is it. This is going to be perfect." So that's why Tim Burton became the director of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, which did really well for him. And Danny Elfman, and I don't remember how Tim Burton met Danny Elfman. He may have been a big fan of Oingo Boingo, I'm not sure, but somehow that friendship began. And then Tim Burton had the Beetlejuice that did really well, and he had the later the Batman and Edward Scissorhands, and then of course Disney wants him back. And he really didn't do. He kind of oversaw what was going on with Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was his basic story. And he worked with Danny Elfman to make the songs. But it's fascinating how he was hands off for a lot of it, and that it was done mostly in San Francisco. And that's my magnification of that whole story of Tim Burton. But it's a fascinating story because he basically was shunned by Disney, and then Disney turned around after Tim had some successes with movies done by other studios and then wanted him back, and he showed them all. But I can't stand watching a lot of his later stuff. I ran to see Nightmare Before Christmas, the Batman, the first one, Batman with Michael Keaton. Beetlejuice, I remember running to the theaters to see that. I'm like, what is this? This is so odd. Did not see Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure in the theater. And I didn't see, anything he did later, I really didn't watch. I saw Corpse Bride on a plane. When I was flying on a plane, I saw that. And it all comes back to planes. And it all comes back to these two. Oh my God.
Ginormous.
This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Thank you for that fascinating tale about Tim Burton, Mike Matthews. Mm-hmm. Well, if you never watch any Tim Burton movie, I just tell you now, go watch Vincent, and you'll understand everything you need to know about Tim Burton. The kid in it, that's all stop motion animation, the claymation type thing, looks exactly like Tim Burton. Exactly like him. It's voiced by his hero, Vincent Price, who later would be in Edward Scissorhands. And later Disney would use Vincent Price. They would use him in the Haunted Mansion ride that they have in Paris, France. He voices it. He's like the narrator, the ghost host. Not Paul Frees, who we may have just heard on my podcast a little while ago. Well, you'll have to magnify it later to find out for sure.
If you shoot me, you better shoot straight. There's nothing like a wounded animal.
Oh, Maxine Waters, no. Don't say that again. Hopefully she doesn't have to say that again with Trump back in office. Okay, that's the end of the podcast. What did you think of all that? You can call me. Here's the number.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640.
And with all things having to do with Mike's Daily Podcast, we go to the mainframe and hear from A-Frame. Thank you for listening. It was an utter joy.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye.